I call this meeting to order. Welcome to number 56 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Pursuant to the order of reference made Wednesday, February 15th, 2023, the committee is meeting on Bill S-222, an act to amend the Department of Public Works and Government Services Act, Use of Wood. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format pursuant to House Order of June 23rd, 2022. Now that we're in session, cameras, shots, screenshots are not allowed. And I'd like to make a few comments. Charlie, do you have a point of order, or can I get through my opening comments, or is translation not working?
Yes, do your opening comments, and then I have a point of order.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. So for those who are new to our panels, welcome. I think many of you have been to committee before, so it's good to see you back. For those participating remotely, if you want to say anything, use the raise hand function. You can choose language preference, floor, English, or French. And anybody online, you have to mute and unmute yourself. In accordance with our routine motion, I'm informing the committee that all witnesses have completed the required connection tests in advance of the meeting. And we do have an slight issue with Mr. Blois that we're getting sorted out. And we have one of our witnesses who was on a meeting until 8:45. He hasn't arrived yet. So when he does get here, we'll have to either suspend or take a brief pause to do his sound check or before he does his opening statements. We have the first hour set aside for witnesses. I'll introduce witnesses shortly, but with that, I'll turn over to Charlie for his point of order, and then we'll continue with the meeting. And I'd also like to welcome Mr. Doherty to our session today. Mr. Angus, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair. I won't take much time from my colleagues. I just wanted to let my colleagues know that I've brought forward a motion that we can debate at future regarding the corporate structure of Paper Excellence, a company that now controls the largest batch of forest lands in Canada as a pulp and paper giant. Questions are being raised, serious questions about their corporate structure, about their ties to Chinese state banks, about their ties to the Asia Pulp and Paper Company. And I think it would be incumbent upon our committee to look into this company a little bit more. So I want to let my colleagues know that that motion is being brought forward this morning, and we can discuss it as people get up to speed on the issue.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. The clerk hasn't received it yet, but when we get it, we'll have it translated and circulated. Mario.
Je travaille.
I have been working on this issue since November. I think Charlie's idea is very interesting. However, I don't want us to be short on time today, and maybe we can come back to this another time. I would like to hear the witnesses, since it is one of Charlie's colleagues who brought forth this motion.
All right. Yeah, good. That's all I have for that. So I'm ready to get into the witnesses. So each group, we have the Quebec Forest Industry Council, and our witness, Mr. Samry, has now arrived. We'll, I think, go through everybody else's opening statements, and we'll come back, do the quick sound check, and then move it right into his opening statement. We have United Steelworkers Union, Mr. Bromley, joining us online this morning. Good morning. Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, Kevin Lefebvre, Fire Chief, Leduc County, and Tina, your last name, I don't want to butcher it too badly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My last name is Saradine.
Oh, Saradine,
but any
okay.
way you say it is fine.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
And then from the International Association of Firefighters, Carmen Santoro, Senior Executive for Eastern Canada. So good morning. If we're ready with Mr. Bromley, let's move to you. I'll give you 5 minutes, and for those who may be new, I give a yellow card for 30 seconds left on the clock, red card when your time's up. Don't stop mid-sentence, just wind up your thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So with that, Mr. Bromley, if you're ready to take the floor, the mic is yours.
I am. Thank you, Chair, and through you, thank you to the clerk and all members of the committee for the opportunity to join here today. My name is Jeff Bromley, and I'm the chair of the United Steelworkers Wood Council, and I'm speaking to you today on the unceded and traditional territory of the Ktunaxa-speaking people in southeastern British Columbia, Cranbrook, BC. The United Steelworkers is the largest private sector union in North America, included There are 225,000 member workers and retirees in the US. The USW represents in nearly every economic sector across Canada. 15,000 of those members work in Canada's forest industry, including logging and harvesting, manufacturing, value added, which includes mass timber, finger joint lumber, laminated veneer lumber, among others, chip production, and hauling. United Steelworkers Wood Councils made up of local unions across Canada. 6 of them are in British Columbia, 1 local in each of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, 2 locals in Ontario, and approximately 1,500 of our members reside in the forest industry in Quebec. As for me, I've spent 29 years working in the forest industry, 18 directly in the operation I came from, about 45 minutes east of here, and the last 11 years servicing our members with the United Steelworkers. So let me start with the basic point that I think we can all agree on. Ensuring that Canadian forest workers are supported as much as possible by Canadian procurement policy and Canadian public dollars. That's a good thing. And for that reason alone, I encourage you strongly to pass this bill quickly, but I will elaborate further. Our forest industry provides good and family and community supporting jobs, often in rural communities and areas where local economies rely entirely on forestry. Wood is the only resilient, carbon storing, and renewable building material. By expanding wood use and substituting traditional building materials with wood products, including mass timber, we can significantly cut the carbon footprint of infrastructure products. But Mr. Chair, we're falling behind. The Americans are already taking action. And since the US procurement market is 10 times the size of the Canadian procurement market, maintaining access to the US is important. The Biden administration has made it clear their infrastructure plans tie together infrastructure spending, fighting climate change, and the creation of good union jobs. In Canada, we need to do the same. The more we are set up to meet the goals of a Buy Clean strategy, the better chance we have of getting and maintaining an exemption to Buy America policy. The fact is, along with steel, aluminum, and cement, wood products produced in Canada represent an opportunity for a reduced carbon footprint. Canada's forest products are a net carbon sink. Our softwood products have been produced for housing both here and abroad for decades. Across this country, you cannot go into a rink or arena that was built over the last 70 years ago, or even 70 years ago, without seeing the distinctive glue laminated beams supporting the roof, proving that the value added or the cross-laminated timber products that are the flavor of the day in terms of mass timber have been around for decades. But for many years, things are changing in how larger buildings are constructed. New building codes are allowing for up to 12 stories. They have better fire-resistant qualities, an aesthetically appealing look, and the fact that they effectively store carbon all point to positive uses in Canada's forest industry. So why wouldn't we root this industry in Canada's procurement policies? It just makes sense. Well, I have the floor. I'd like to make 2 more quick points. First, because the mass timber and the new mass timber market is growing with new demand and products, I would urge parliamentarians and the government to take steps to make sure the industry is developed alongside our existing manufacturing sector. It already has the infrastructure and established good family supporting unionized jobs. Integration will be the best way forward, but our employers will need a little bit more nudging. Second, while working on our own procurement policies and seeking an exemption to Buy America, we can't stop fighting for a long-term deal that addresses the softwood lumber dispute once and for all. Such an obvious point may go without saying, but after all the damage this dispute has caused, I think it has to be said whenever possible. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Great. Thank you so much for your opening comments. We will now come to the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs. And Mr. Lefebvre, if you'd like to take your 5 minutes for opening statements, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs here today. My name is Kevin Lefebvre. I'm the Fire Chief for Leduc County in Alberta. I'm the elected I'm an elected CAFC board member and co-chair of the CAFC's Building Codes Committee. I'm also a member of the Advisory Council of Canada's Harmonized Building Codes and a member of the Alberta Safety Code Building Subcouncil and a master electrician. And I start my 42nd year in the fire service later this month. I'm joined today by CAFC's Executive Director, Dr. Tina Saradine. The Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs represents the country's 3,200 fire departments through their fire chiefs and through a national advisory council of provincial, territorial, and national affiliate organizations like Department of National Defense, one of the largest owners of federal buildings. Fire departments vary from small rural volunteer to large metro unionized departments, and despite our diversity, we are united in our calling to protect the lives of Canadians. Bill S-222 in the context of federal properties and public works is commendable. However, my colleagues and I are fire chiefs, so as is our proclivity, we prepare for what could happen on the worst day. First, wood has a special meaning to many of us as Canadians, however, use it selectively. Outcomes could be disastrous in combustible parking garages containing lithium-ion charging systems, such as electric vehicle or solar storage. Well-intentioned environmental efforts using wood shingles and wildland-urban interface can contribute to wildfire damage. Building in these areas need to follow fire-smart principles and include sprinklers and other detection and prevention methodologies. Next, take the necessary measures to ensure that federal buildings are fully operational post-disaster. Canadians require our government to be operational during and after disasters. The buildings need to be part of the solution, not an additional problem. Specific areas of government are currently looking to enhance and toughen building construction in light of the increasing impact of weather-driven disasters. CAFC Census 2022 showed that of the 2 million emergency events responded to annually, nearly 10% of these are to new environmental emergencies. If encouraging use of products through government procurement, ensure that the end use is fully understood. Please ensure this bill doesn't contradict or duplicate already adopted codes and standards. Some buildings, by code, are required to be specifically non-combustible. Understand that additives, treatments, and unintended consequences of construction products could actually prevent the carbon reductions you anticipate or even become toxic in a fire. And in this thread, we would like to thank all MPs for their unanimous vote on Wednesday regarding Bill C-224, an act to establish a framework for firefighter cancer. Our next ask will be to please support an increase in the volunteer firefighter tax credit. 80% of the country's fire services volunteer, and no matter what building material you choose, we need every incentive to help protect response capacity in this country. Third, in Vancouver, the successful introduction of tall wood buildings was accompanied by many resources from public safety, engineering, many variances to specific code requirements, and much training. Unless considering such resource and training wherever we introduce innovation, we fail in its responsible introduction. As you pass this bill, consider that a firefighter safety objective be placed in the regulations under this act. Support the same in the National Building Code of Canada as required recently in minister mandate letters. Related to this are the tenability times for firefighters to work within structures in the event of fire and the need to include floor performance standards within the National Building Code. Firefighters can and have fallen through floors during a fire. Canadians need the same floor performance assurances as are provided for in the U.S. and elsewhere. As you move forward, please ensure that first responders are made aware of and trained to handle construction fires with the materials and methodologies chosen. This is necessary for appropriate entry, evacuation, and response measures. In preparing for today, my colleagues at Ottawa Fire reminded us that replacing existing building components with wood, for example, can impact load, fire spread, and other safety calculations negatively. In closing, we have always believed the same building code should apply for everyone, everywhere. It should be enforced and enforceable. It should have a firefighter safety objective. Firefighter readiness, training, and equipment must be considered in preparation for what might happen on a building's worst day. The work you are doing today can help to mitigate future problems. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we'll move right over to Mr. Santoro, and if you're ready, the floor is yours for your 5 minutes of opening statement.
Great. Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for this opportunity to share our views on Bill S-222 and the expanded use of wood in federal government buildings. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. To briefly introduce our organization, the International Association of Firefighters, or the IAFF, represents more than 330,000 members in North America, including over 26,000 in Canada. Across this country, our members are on scene in minutes to any kind of an emergency, including structure fires, medical emergencies, water and ice rescues, hazardous materials incidents, and much more. The IFF supports a vibrant economy and a successful, sustainable wood and wood products industry, including the expansion of the forestry sector and the opportunity for those workers. We ask this committee to consider that the increased use of combustible materials should come with increased considerations for fire safety, fire protection resources, and firefighter safety. The last thing anyone wants is for a preventable tragedy to occur because of the unintended consequences of using combustible building materials for the wrong building, in the wrong location, or in a place where the risk exceeds the capabilities of the local fire departments. Expanded use of wood products in construction of federal government buildings should not migrate into certain Type 1 buildings as defined in the National Building Code, such as detention facilities, art facilities, or industrial sites, or such structures as parking garages, structures with major electrical installations, or structures that are critical to government operations in the event of a major disaster. Existing building code and safety-related considerations such as sprinklers, smoke alarms, egress and floor performance should be adhered to and enforced. Building locations should be carefully assessed to ensure they are not positioned to contribute to or be victim to wildfire, a threat that is becoming more and more prevalent in Canada. The design and safety of structures in so-called interface areas should be approached with the greatest amount of caution as the Government of Canada works slowly towards its commitment to train 1,000 firefighters in wildland response in the face of this growing threat. Currently, the National Building Code doesn't link building uses to the available fire protection resources or training. We recommend a fire protection assessment in concert with local authorities anytime a building with significant wood content is proposed. Local firefighters should be made aware of exactly what kind of materials are present in a higher risk structure and must be able to pre-plan the emergency response operations with training specific to the materials and the risks present. Training and awareness should include reference to any toxic chemicals that are present in the building materials such as wood treatments. Adequate fire protection resources should be available in such a manner as to arrive on the scene quickly and with adequate amount of personnel and the equipment necessary to safely and effectively protect lives, protect the structure, and protect nearby exposed structures. All of these concerns from a fire protection and firefighter safety point of view are amplified when it comes to proposals for tall wood structures, meaning 6 to 12-story structures that are now permitted in the building code. Bill S-222 and the rise of innovation in construction support our long-standing call for firefighter safety objective in the National Building Code. So on behalf of our members across Canada and the IFF, we appreciate the opportunity. And just before I close, while I have the floor, I just want to say that I've been a firefighter for 37 years, and for most of it as a supervisor, as a captain. And what a lot of people don't realize is that we are one of the few professions that do not have the right to refuse unsafe work. And every emergency scene is unsafe work. And we rely on all of you to include safety measures in building codes and fire codes to reduce the dangers that we face every day. So with that, I'll close. Thank you very much, and I'm open to questions.
Great. Thank you very much for your opening statements, and thank you to both of you and your organizations for all of the service that you provide to the country, and look forward to having some good discussion with you today. I want to take just a minute here. We're going to suspend so we can quickly do the sound check. Mr. Samray has the approved headsets. We think this should be take just a second. And so because we're being televised, it gets messy if we do it all live. So we'll suspend. If you need to grab a coffee, do that, but don't go too far. I expect to be back in session momentarily. So with that, we're temporarily suspended. Opening comments. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. President, Mesdames, Messieurs, les députés.
Thank you. The Quebec Forest Industry Council wishes to welcome the intention of Bill S-222 to ensure that wood is more systematically considered in the federal government's infrastructures, thus contributing to infrastructure to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. To date, the strategies for GHG reduction have been primarily focused on building operating energy. That means advocating to reduce these emissions, focus on improving energy efficiency and converting energy sources for heating to greener sources such as hydroelectricity. However, a growing number of studies show that emissions from the manufacture of materials used in the construction of buildings will change. We share the opinions of all these studies, and the materials have a major impact on the carbon footprint of buildings. This is why we support the adoption of Bill S-222. As a local resource for sustainably managed Canadian forests, wood is a major ally in the decarbonization of construction, and its contribution to the fight against climate change is threefold: storage of carbon by the forests, carbon storage in wood products, and substitution of GHG-intensive products by wood products. The Council believes that we must act on three fronts if we want to increase the use of wood in federal infrastructure. First, we must recognize the impact of materials in the carbon impact of buildings. In order to accelerate the decarbonization of the Canadian economy and achieving carbon neutrality in the construction sector, one of the pathways is the substitution of high carbon materials with low carbon materials such as wood and other bio-based materials. Bill S-22 is fully in line with this logic, and although the Council is in favor of its adoption, we recommend that a more concrete measure be put forward to accelerate the decarbonization of the Canadian economy, and the achievement of carbon neutrality in the construction sector. The QFIC recommends that a mandatory GHG emissions analysis for construction materials be done for all construction, maintenance, and repair work on public works and federal buildings. The role of public policies adopted by government is also critical in our view. Indeed, these policies contribute to the adoption of wood construction in government buildings and, by the same token, to the development of expertise and innovation throughout the wood construction industry. However, despite the potential for GHG reductions and long-term carbon sequestration in wood, existing policies are mostly guidelines and need to be strengthened, particularly through regulation. This is why I believe that consideration of low-carbon material selection should go beyond voluntary measures or incentives. Perhaps we could take a cue from some countries that have already gone down this path by targeting GHG emission limits for buildings that include emissions associated with building materials. Third, we believe that life cycle analysis is essential to inform decision-making. In the construction industry, studies on life cycles have provided a better understanding of the sources of emissions associated with the building sector and have helped to assess the relative importance of emissions associated with the manufacturing of materials. The implementation of carbon footprint calculation tools such as Gestimat in Quebec supports informed decision-making throughout the design and construction process. It also facilitates the establishment of reduction targets and the measurement of the achievement of these targets. We welcome the implementation of concrete measures, such as the obligation to conduct life cycle analyses upstream of projects and pilot initiatives. The Council invites the Canadian legislature to introduce in its act an obligation to conduct a life cycle analysis upstream of projects at the pre-design stage. It is by encouraging and provoking a change in practices that we will be able to accelerate decarbonization and benefit from the positive spin-offs of the use of wood materials. In the decarbonization of construction, indeed, but also in the achievement of the ambitious objectives of carbon neutrality that Canada has set, all the while creating jobs and communities, whether it be Indigenous or allophone communities. Thank you for your attention. I'm now ready to answer your questions.
Perfect. And excellent timing on everybody's opening statements. Thank you so much for sticking within the timelines. We're going to have time now to go through one round of questions for each of the parties at 6 minutes each. And first up, I have Mr. Dreeshen. So, Mr. Dreeshen, when you're ready to take the floor, you'll have 6 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all of the witnesses that we had here today. I think really one of the most important things is the point that was just made by Mr. Samarin, which is, of course, informed decision making and certainly life cycle analysis of the products that we are using, and I think that's really a critical aspect of it. Wood structures do not last forever. Sadly, some of them, as with many structures, they can succumb to things such as fires and so on. So I think that's important to recognize, but that they still have to be disposed of at a certain time. So it's good to know that there is this full life cycle analysis of the products that are being used for construction. But what I would like to do is to talk to Mr. Lefebvre. Wasn't that long ago where I had an opportunity to present a number of Queen Platinum Jubilee medals to a bunch of brave firefighters in Alberta. And so it was an honor to do that. But you really recognize the commitment that they have and what they go through on a day-to-day basis. So I would like to get some information, Mr. Lefebvre, and perhaps Mr. Santoro can also chime in here later. As far as building codes are concerned, I know that Mr. Lefebvre, you did talk about the fact that you major in electrical, and I think that's really a critical part, because as we see new buildings, we are going to anticipate that there's going to be much more of a case for electrical charging, whether it be battery packs that are being left in basements, and of course, you've mentioned in past testimony about the concerns that you have regarding fires that are taking place with electrical vehicles. So can you give us a bit of an idea of what type of codes could be there? And of course, if there happens to be fires taking place, what you would need to have in order to put those out before their whole structure gets in a state where it can't be controlled?
Certainly, thank you for the question. As you rightfully say, I've been a master electrician for nearly 40 years as well, and I've seen code change over the years. Years ago, batteries of any type were meant to be stored in a way that if they came into a problem, they didn't interact with the living space. Now we're allowing living walls, or I'm not sure the title, but the batteries are allowed to be in the attached garage, a combustible attached garage. And lithium-ion batteries explode. They don't necessarily off-gas the way batteries used to, but they do explode when they overcharge. And 70% of all residential garage fires are detected by a bystander or a neighbor, not by the occupant. There's still not a code in an attached garage requiring detection, which would give early detection to an occupant as soon as the batteries started smoking. And there is a bit of a code conflict happening right now between the electrical code and the building code, which is going to allow additional battery storage capacity in the attached residential garage. We have some concerns with the way that these are stored, the location as far as egress paths, and just the general protection from creating the building to go onto fire.
Mr. Santora, can you add to this?
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. I think that stairwells need to be sprinklered to allow us more opportunity in high-risk structures. The proper training and awareness for firefighters to be able to pre-plan for those structures as well. And more egress points when there's high-risk situations in those structures as well.
Just as an added point, as far as safety is concerned, and of course we've seen wildfires come in, to communities. It's really nice to have your buildings really close to a forest because it looks great, but there's certainly should be some thought municipally and even if you live out on the farm, just to make sure that you have a buffer, in case fires come through. So is that something that you've been able to get the attention of municipalities to try to make sure that we can prevent some of these fires? Mr. Santora.
Yes, thank you for the question, and thank you for bringing that up. I did mention that in my earlier testimony. It is a serious concern, and for the International Association of Firefighters, we have worked with this government and have had approval for training for 1,000 firefighters for wildland fires, and unfortunately it's moving rather slowly, but with that training it would certainly help mitigate any risk with buildings close to some forestry.
How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair?
You're down to 5 seconds.
That'll be fine. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Deschon. We will now go to Mr. Sobera. But just a second, there we go. We're good in the clock, so Mr. Sobera, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. Happy Friday. I'd first like to go to the Quebec Forest Industry Council. Bonjour to Jean-Francois. Jean-Francois, you mentioned three things that you thought were important with regards to the usage of wood and how we look at, say, mass timber utilization of mass timber in construction. Can you just quickly point those three items out, because I think they're important to be noted again?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Sabera, we have just lost Mr. Samry.
Okay,
he's dropped off.
I will.
We're trying to find him and bring him back. My apologies. He
Senate,
was here and now he's gone. So
no problems. Senate Powell, problem, Chair. If we can go over to the gentleman.
No problem.
From British Columbia, Jeff, in terms of the United Steelworkers Union, and I agree with a lot of your comments about rural areas, especially in British Columbia, where you have sawmills and pulp mills and pulp and paper mills, which I worked one when I was young, in much younger time period of my life. How important it is that we look at wood and its different usage now. If you can comment on that, please.
Well, I think that the question of, or the comment about obtaining more value out of our timber and our forest resources across the country, not only in British Columbia but in all of our boreal forests across the country, is, I think it goes without saying that the more value that we can extract out of the resource, the renewable resource, means it pays off in spades in terms of more jobs, more places or more communities that they support and things of that nature. So I think that's a bit of a misnomer in our industry. Many times the industry is tagged with, we produce 2x4s and that's about it. And I think that's a bit of it's unfortunate, because the products that we make across the industry from the resource are multifaceted, and and even more so the recent mass timber and CLT focus is a product that certainly is gaining momentum, but has been around for quite a few years. And as I mentioned in my opening, that there's many structures that were built in the 50s that you can see these beautiful laminated glue laminated beams in terms of a value-added product that was made from our industry. So it's extremely important.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to quickly pivot to the fire chiefs that are here and the representatives from the IAFF, and thank you to you and all your members for what you do on a daily basis. The first responders in the country and really all over the world. My hat's off to them. And I want to have a quick shout out to the Vaughan Professional Firefighters Association here, who we have a great working relationship, and I'm glad we mentioned the S224 that was passed in the House of Commons, and I think that's another great step to recognize the efforts of firefighters. With regards to your comments, I just wanted to clarify with regards to mass timber and any concerns there versus concerns with existing building codes in Canada to make sure that firefighters are kept safe when they are called in. It was exactly commented by Mr. Santoro. This is one occupation where you can't just shy away from a dangerous work situation. So if I can get some clarification there, please.
Is that to me?
You can go to Mr. Lefray first.
Mass timber in its code adoption has happened fairly quickly, and I've said a few times over the last number of years that innovation is moving faster than the fire service can adapt to the innovation. We're not comfortable with 6-story buildings right now, and now we're already at 12 and higher. So innovation is happening way quicker. There's not the money in place for training. There's not the awareness of how to deal with some of these buildings on their worst day. And we're not against innovation. We just need help with being prepared for it.
And Mr. Santoro?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. I think through the building code and the fire codes, as I said, through the stairwells, we need a higher rating for those type of wood structures to help get people out. But just as importantly, firefighters are going in. We just need the opportunity to get out and get out alive and slow down that burn rate. And we're calling on you to, we're relying on all of you to ensure that you give us that opportunity.
Thank you, sir. And back to you, Chair.
Okay, you still have a minute left. Do you want to pass the time to anybody else, or
no? I can finish up. I did not realize. Back to Mr. Bromley, if we haven't gotten back the gentleman from the Quebec Forest Council. I see the clerk saying no.
Not
Okay.
yet.
Back to you, Mr. Bromley. Have you seen some of the benefits of the use of mass timber in terms of employment growth within the wood product sector in BC? And you're correct, the connotation of just sending out logs to Japan or something or by 2x4s or 2x6s, that's far from what the actual industry does.
And there's no question you've seen examples of that right here in my neck of the woods, for lack of a better term, in the southeastern British Columbia and southern British Columbia too. One of our operations in Penticton, Structure employs over 200 of our members producing mass timber and CLT products, as well as a little bit closer to me over in the West Kootenay in Thrums, just north of Castlegar, BC, the Klesnikoff facility, which is really brand new, built over the last 3 or 4 years, employing about 100 members. So there is certainly that it's growing. It needs to, I think, as I said in my comments, that using the existing infrastructure and the manufacturing production facilities that we have to encourage employers to shift is the way to go.
Okay, and we're out of time there.
Est-ce que, John, j'aurais le consentement?
Do I have consent to suspend for a couple of minutes in order to allow Mr. Semry to reconnect?
To see if we wanted to change orders, unless if Charlie if he wants to also direct questions to Mr. Samry, we can suspend while we try to get him back on. If Charlie's question was going to be elsewhere, I'm happy to put Charlie next, and then which gives us an extra 6 minutes.
Oui.
Charlie, would you like to go now, or
I'm willing to go in order that Mr. Samry can come on, so Mr. Simard can get his questions in. I think that will be fair.
Okay, so here, just let me restart the clock. Over to you, Charlie, for 6 minutes. Mr. Angus.
Yes, Mr. Bromley, I was really interested in your discussion about the role of the IRA and the work that Joe Biden is doing in terms of a major economic transformation in the United States, because it doesn't look like something we'd seen in Canada with just a bunch of tax credits spread around here and there. What we're looking at is a hugely comprehensive plan that's tied to sustainability, resources, and good paying union jobs. Can you elaborate a bit further on the perspective of the steelworkers in terms of what Canada needs to do to stay competitive with the Biden administration's IRA?
I think I can use an example from our own organization down south in terms of I was at an international executive board meeting where I report on our activities from a Canadian perspective. But the Biden administration's program, Buy America, and the IRA is, in fact, utilizing and trying to reinvigorate different in terms of the steel industry, and using our members there, specifically in the Gary, Indiana works, and in that area of where a lot of our membership works. And it's incentivizing industry to certainly bid on U.S. procurement or projects in terms of infrastructure, bridges, and what have you, but using U.S.-made steel and unionized U.S. not just U.S. steel as the company, but United States steel in terms of the products to make that. So it's certainly they're tying the tax dollars, and it's billions of tax dollars with a B in the United States that they're offering, and they're tying it to, obviously, restricting it to American companies and American workers and unionized workers. And so it's certainly it's a direction that I wish that I would hope that our country would follow suit in terms of the procurement, although not quite as large, but certainly would benefit both the taxpayers and the workers in Canada.
Well, we've seen over the last decades policies by the federal government that turns a blind eye to offshoring of good union jobs, an unwillingness to stand up for our sectors because of this myth of globalization. And yet what we're seeing with Biden is this real serious commitment about transforming the economy, not just for the jobs, but also for the sustainability of the planet. How important do you think it is that the federal government uses procurement methods to promote resource work in the forestry sector, mass timber products, and being able to develop the huge beneficial resources that we have to the benefit of our communities and our workers.
I think that it's obviously a no-brainer. I mean, I think that any tax dollars that stay in our communities and that benefit our communities in Canada obviously provide that multiplier effect in terms of the economic benefit in supporting those workers and those communities in our, again, because a lot of those communities in my industry, they're rural. With respect to Ottawa being a historic forest town, it's not so much anymore, maybe 100 years ago, but a lot of our operations are in the rural areas of Canada, and we need to support those communities. However, I think that it's important for the procurement to certainly support those workers, and I think that a policy such as this or instituting that goes a long way. And I certainly respect my counterparts from the firefighters associations and that safety of their members and safeties. We need to do this right. We need to make sure that we don't overlook anything that could possibly put any workers, because workers are workers, whether you're running into a burning building or if you're just getting up and going to work in the morning, that we don't overlook that aspect and make sure that we put in those stringent protections so that those members are also protected. But I think it's at the end of the day, the taxpayers' money being spent on supporting products within our industry and within our country is a good thing.
So the steelworkers would support changes to the national building codes to ensure that if we are using mass timber products in buildings, that we have in place very stringent conditions to protect in terms of fire, so that, again, those who are going in extreme situations when a fire happens are safe. Do you believe that is this something the steelworkers would support, the procurement, but also making sure the building codes are modified wherever necessary to make sure we put safety front and center?
Absolutely, it's unequivocal, and it's not up for debate in my opinion. I fight every day for members within our industry. I mean, for mills and pulp mills and sawmills are not obviously safe places all the time, but we fight every day to make sure that our members are safe in the workplace. And it would be hypocritical for me not to expect the same of my counterparts in the firefighting.
Finally, to close up, then, Mr. Santoro, could I ask you just to weigh in on this, because you gave a very clear and passionate statement on the need for safety for your members. Do you believe it's possible that we can work with the expansion of mass timber products, developing more sustainable buildings? Would it be that we have to actually focus on the building codes to know where and how it's done to keep safety front and center?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Of course, we would support that. We'd support the expansion of wood in structures, as long as I've said earlier, as long as there's protections in place for not only firefighters but for the general public, and an awareness level, so that firefighters can pre-plan for the dangers that are in those particular structures, including the chemicals and toxins that will be impregnated in some of those mass wood structures and the materials that go in there. They're all toxins that are cancer causing, and we need to take the necessary precautions to ensure our members and the public is safe.
Great, thank you, and we're out of time there. We do have Monsieur Samri back. We do need to suspend just for a minute to make sure that to do another quick test. So we'll suspend and hopefully be right back in. Monsieur Samar, do you have 6 minutes? Let's get going before we lose our guest, Monsieur Samari.
Bon, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. So finally, we're out of the woods. Excellent. Mr. Samri, I'd like to bust a few myths with you. My colleague Earl was talking about the life cycles earlier, and we don't know how that's calculated in the forests. A tree will take up carbon throughout the course of its life for 90 years, for example, and then my colleague Earl seemed to be saying that within buildings, when a building burns down and the carbon emanates and it releases the carbon, it's not the same as when it's in nature. Can you come back to the life cycle analyses so that it's clear for everyone? The life cycle analysis takes into consideration all of the carbon that is emitted and sequestered during the lifespan of a product. So when you plant a tree to the time that it is harvested, the tree will stock carbon, and then there is machines that are used to, and we will calculate all the carbon that is used even during transportation until it comes to being used in the building. All of these standards are very tight. They are recognized globally, and this is how we can calculate how much carbon is in this material. And the carbon will therefore also be stored in the building for decades or even centuries. There are buildings in Quebec that have been standing since the 1840s, for example. There's a construction in Montebello that has been there for ages. It's the same in Europe. You can have buildings that have been around for centuries. So to paraphrase, wood is the most advantageous with regards to the life cycle of carbon. Something else I would like to circle back to. There are very legitimate concerns that the firefighters have talked about with regards to the construction of buildings. I've had these conversations with some people in Shibugami when we talk about the beams. For example, the cross-laminated lumber, that they have different impacts. Do you have any information on that? We are doing some studies at the NRC. There was a firefighter association that was present. We had metrics to calculate everything. We burned some wood. It went up to 1,300 degrees, and the temperature within the actual beam had only gone up 2 degrees. And so the part that actually burned, but it actually kind of maintains what's on the inside. So if there had been steel buildings, then the beams would have been twisted and the buildings would have fallen apart. We are now seeing buildings up to 23 floors, and it is a very different situation. Thank you, Mr. Samri. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the following. I'm sure you've read the bill. In your presentation, you said that we need more than voluntary measures. In the bill, which is very interesting, you implied that we should go a little bit further and include a mandatory restrictive portion to it. Is that what you think? Am I correct? Well, the bill says that the government can do this, but they don't need that. According to us, there should be one scenario for wood in the bill. That is the case in Quebec. A wood alternative analysis should be done, and in Quebec, we are now demanding that carbon calculations be also included in order to meet the requirements for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The only way to do that is to demand carbon analyses. That is the only way to diminish the carbon intensity of buildings. To finish, you have a software that calculates these things called Gestimat. When you use it, there's a comparison that you could do between a building that is built with wood and one that is made with steel, for example, and the emissions, the imprint are quite different, if I'm not mistaken. Indeed, buildings that have a hybrid structure, well, it reduced by 30% the greenhouse gas emissions. That is a very important gain. 861 tons of carbon are sequestered. It is doable. We can quantify it and calculate it nowadays. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we're out of time there. No, colleagues, we do have the clause by clause to get into. I have had a request from the Conservatives for one fast question. So I'm going to turn to the committee. We will need to suspend after this panel to bring in the new one. I've been told it's a very fast question. Do I have agreement from the committee to put that out there, or would we like to move into the clause by clause? Okay. And in the spirit of Earl not having used his full time, I'll give the floor to you, Todd, for your one quick question, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our colleagues for giving us that. I do want to say thank you to all who are here for their service to our country and to our communities. Simple question to our firefighters that are here today. Does the National Building Code, is it enforceable on First Nations land? Does it apply to First Nations communities?
The enforceability of the National Building Code is increasing. It's not about the enforceability of the code, it's about the capacity. So First Nations are becoming more independent and more enforcing on their own to some extent, and the resources typically haven't been there historically, but they're improving.
Okay, Mr. Santoro?
I can't answer that definitively.
Is there concerns?
Definite concerns, absolutely. Through the chair, absolutely. We've included some of those comments in our testimony as far as the First Nations, and there's definitely concerns there as well, especially with, as I've said, with the wildland fires that encroach on those properties and the risk that they have in those areas, and we certainly need to address that.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. And with that, folks, I'd like to thank all of the witnesses for being here. And with that, you're released to go and continue on with your day. Really appreciate the time you spent with us. We're going to now suspend and do a quick swap out of panels, and we'll resume for the clause by clause in just a moment. So for now, we're suspended. we're going to be moving into the clause by clause. So for this part of the meeting, I'm going to go through a few reminders first for clause by clause consideration of Bill S222. One amendment has been submitted for this bill. Should members wish to submit further amendments during today's meeting, those amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk of the committee. There's no need for a seconder to move an amendment. Once moved, you will need unanimous consent to withdraw it. During debate on an amendment, members are permitted to move sub-amendments. The sub-amendments must also be submitted in writing. They do not require the approval of the mover of the amendment. Once every clause has been voted on, the committee will vote on the title and on the bill as a whole. Finally, the committee will have to order the chair to report the bill to the House. That report will contain only the text of any adopted amendments as well as an indication of any deleted clauses. And then we'll now move into the clause by clause. So, you know what? I don't have. I want. We have. We'll call the first clause, and we have Mario's, Mr. Simard's amendment, and so we go to the amendment first, right?
Sure.
Okay, so Mr. Simard, if you'd like to speak to your amendment, then we'll have the discussion on that. So over to you.
Oui, rapidement.
Very quickly, you have heard one of the witnesses, Mr. Sam, right? Who indicated that he had certain concerns with the impact of the bill. When I read this bill, I am in favor of it. I don't want there to be any more use of wood, but I question the impact. What will be the impact of this bill on the use of wood after we have applied this bill? Would there be a real impact? There's a very simple principle in law. We say that the lawyer is not speaking just to speak. When I read the bill as is, in this iteration, we talk about the minister who can authorize and will take into consideration. Of course, the minister indeed can authorize the use of wood and can indeed take it into consideration. We don't need a bill for that. So my amendment is regarding that. Here's what I am proposing. I propose that Bill S222 in Clause 1 be amended by replacing line 12 on page 1 with the following. Shall maximize the use of wood. The minister may also allow the use of any other thing, including. So I was adding the element of maximizing the use of wood by using the word maximize instead of what we see here, which is takes into consideration or can authorize. We will at least be able to increase the wood material. If the goal of this bill is to have buildings with a less imposing carbon imprint. Right now, as I said earlier, the presumption being that the lawyer should not be speaking just blowing hot air, then I think that this is the amendment to make.
You. Just letting that translation finish off there. I wanted to point out to all members that online we have Mr. Hamilton, Director General, Technical Services, Real Property Services with the Department of Public Works and Government Services. So welcome, Mr. Hamilton, and thank you for being here. Mr. Hamilton is here as our technical witness, and so if anybody has any questions that they'd like to direct on amendments or the clause to Mr. Hamilton, he's available to take those. Mr. Angus, you have your hand up, so I'll turn the floor over to you to speak to, I assume, Mr. Simard's amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly fully share the spirit of Mr. Simard's amendment. I think it captures the spirit of what we are doing in the committee. However, I would warn about trying to be perfect when we can be good. I know that Mr. Canning did a lot of work trying to get this bill supported by all players. That there was a lot of negotiations on. And so I'm very wary about changing the wording or adding to it without that having done that consultation. So I will not be supporting this amendment. I believe the bill is good as it stands, and we've had a lot of support for it as it stands. So I'll be voting against the amendment.
Okay, next on my list I have Mr. Simard.
Bon, je peux peut-être.
Maybe I can just indicate to Charlie that in 2017, his colleague Mr. Canning brought forth a bill, C-374, which uses more or less the same writing, or the same wording. I don't know, maybe he can change his support to this amendment. I think that his colleague was proposing something in the same vein of what we're proposing today. I don't know why something that was good in 2017 wouldn't be good today.
Okay, thank you. Next on my speaker list, I have Mr. Bruson. Julie, over to you.
Thank you. And I think that the point that Mario Simare is raising is really important, and I appreciate his advocacy for the use of mass timber. But I was curious if perhaps Mr. Hamilton would be able to help us to understand what the impact of this amendment would be on government decisions.
So, Mr. Hamilton, over to you if you're able to share your thoughts on that question.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with everyone this morning. Real Property Services would not recommend supporting the proposed change, as it's contrary to the position paper that our minister signed. Selection and management of materials in real property is based on the recognized assessment tools that we have in place and that we're working with the National Research Council in our continued process of innovation. If wood is in fact the best material for greenhouse gas reduction and environmental benefits, the analysis that we currently do at the commencement of projects will identify wood as the best solution to implement. There also is no clear definition of what maximize is, which will make that word and the implementation and tracking of maximize extremely difficult. So because of that, Public Services and Procurement Canada would not be in support of the change.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bruson, did you have a follow-up question? Otherwise, I have Mr. Simard on my speaker list. You good? Okay, Mr. Simard.
J'ai une question pour Monsieur.
I have a question for Mr. Hamilton. With regards to how things are right now, and we had some witnesses, one of your colleagues earlier this week, right now I do think that you do take into consideration in the studies that you are making of the carbon imprint. You're already doing it, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I understood from the discussion earlier this week. Right now, the minister can also authorize the use of wood with this bill. That is what I understood from what your colleague said earlier this week. Am I correct? Is that is what I'm saying true according to your practices?
Okay, Mr. Hamilton, if you're able to respond.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So at the commencement of a project, we do what is called the greenhouse gas options analysis methodology. That methodology considers all the materials that will be used. Each of them have either a what's called a environmental product declaration, which identifies the amount of both embedded carbon and carbon that will be sequestered or emitted within the product. I believe one of my colleagues earlier in the week also spoke about the price of carbon at $300 a ton. All of these things are taken into consideration at the commencement of a project. And so the total price of a project takes into account many contributing factors. So at the end result, we are trying to do construction with all the materials that at the end of the day afford Canada the lowest GHG emissions possible. And if wood is that product, then wood, through the options analysis, will be clearly identified.
Pardon, je comprends bien.
I understand what you're saying right now is that you're already doing what the bill is saying, and so the minister can authorize the use of wood, and you're already calculating the gains in GHG emission reductions in your buildings. So the impact of this bill is null because you are already applying what is in this bill. That is why it is important, in my opinion, to add the aspect of maximizing the use of wood. Right now, the before and after, for example, before this bill and after this bill, there is no difference with regards to what you're doing right now when you evaluate and analyze, assess federal buildings, for example. There's no difference. Do I understand correctly?
Okay, Mr. Hamilton, if you could provide a response, and then I have Ms. Lapointe next on my list.
Again, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. The National Research Council is continuing to develop their database. It's called a life cycle assessment database, which includes all the materials that are currently available for construction. And that database will be the baseline that will be used starting in 2025 as we request a 25% reduction a 20% reduction or a 10% reduction that will go to a 30% reduction of GHG in construction materials. Currently, wood is not in that database. The only material currently that's in that database is, to my knowledge, is cement and concrete. Various materials in construction are continuing to be added, and as those materials are added, it will benefit the reduction of GHG in construction. So that's the innovation that's happening as part of the greening government strategy.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go over to Madame Lapointe, and then I think Mr. Simard has a follow-up question. So Ms. Lapointe first.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Mr. Hamilton. You talked about the decisions around selecting materials is based on some well-established assessment tools. Can you briefly highlight for us what that looks like? And is it a reasonable assumption that those tools would identify other resources other than wood, such as low-carbon steel or concrete, that may be more suitable for building materials?
Okay, Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So the GHG options analysis methodology does just that. So it looks at, and I listened in to some of the previous witnesses that were here that spoke about both the emitted and sequestered carbon in wood. This is a long and complex process with creating what is called a environmental product declaration for every type of material in construction. And it really depends where that material is coming from. So if a piece of steel or wood that's used in construction is coming from Quebec or coming from British Columbia, it will have a different environmental product declaration. Why? Because transportation, how it was sourced, all adds to the carbon footprint. So the National Research Council plays an essential role in the creation of these environmental product declarations. This information is a critical component in the greenhouse gas options analysis methodology that is used in addition to the $300 price that we put on carbon when we start doing the analysis of the best option when we're doing new construction and major renovation. The outcome of that analysis provides us what is the lowest carbon emitting solution to do that project.
Okay, thank you. And I think back to Monsieur Simard.
Monsieur Hamilton, je vais vous...
Mr. Hamilton, I would like you to answer clearly with a yes or no. Right now, today, if you do an assessment of a project, in that assessment and that analysis, do you take into consideration the reduction of emissions? And in that analysis, can the minister authorize the use of wood today? I'm talking about right now. If we look at a project, can we do those two things? Take into consideration the reduction of emissions and authorize the use of wood?
Okay, Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So my understanding, it's a two-part question. So the first part question is, do we take into account emissions? So for that, the answer is yes. The second part is, does, in regards to the minister authorizing wood, currently, there is nothing that specifically in any of the regulations now that specifically in PSPC annotates wood, to my knowledge.
Okay, Mr. Smart.
Juste être clair, donc le bois...
So you are being clear, wood is forbidden right now. We cannot use wood.
Présentement,
Presently, in the projects, we cannot use wood. Correct?
C'est bien ça, Monsieur Hamilton?
Is that so, Mr. Hamilton?
Okay, yeah, Mr. Hamilton.
Should I respond, Mr. Chair?
Oui. Yes, please, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Excuse. It's not forbidden. There's not a specific material that is noted. It doesn't say steel. It doesn't say wood. It doesn't say concrete. No specific material is identified.
Donc,
So if no specific material is identified or determined, the minister can authorize the use of wood.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. It's not clear to me what is specifically being asked from the member.
So, Mr. Smart.
You just told me, Mr. Hamilton, I am asking you if the authorization of wood is forbidden. You said no, so I'm saying, so if the use of wood is not forbidden, then the minister can authorize the use of wood. He can do it currently. If it is not forbidden, then he can authorize it. So how is this bill a gain if you already take into consideration the reduction of emissions and if you can already authorize the use of wood?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. We don't authorize any specific product in construction. The goal in construction is to minimize the emissions during construction. So through the GHG options analysis methodology, the end result is to use the materials during construction that reduce and have the least emissions footprint possible. If through that analysis, wood turns out to provide the best emissions or the least emissions footprint, wood will be the product that is chosen. And that is the basis of using a options analysis methodology.
Donc, on peut utiliser le bois. C'est ce que je voulais savoir.
So you can use wood if that is the product that has the least amount of emissions. We can use wood, if I understand correctly. I understand from the nodding of your head that you are saying yes. So back to my first question. Right now, today, if you do an assessment and analysis, it is possible to take into consideration the emissions, and if a material has the least amount of emissions, it is possible to use wood. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
And then I have Mr. Angus on my list.
Thank you. This has been very interesting.
Charlie, before I go to you, I'm just going to get Mr. Hamilton. He was asked a question from Mr. Simard, so just want to get a quick response, and then to you.
Thank you for the question again, Mr. Chair. So designers will put forward design solutions, evaluating construction to establish the best solution possible. Again, it all comes back to what design solution, using the various tools that we have available, provide the lowest GHG emission footprint. And again, if wood ends up being that outcome, then wood would be the product that is selected. This is not about one product over another. We have no preference. We use an agnostic tool that provides a response. And if it's wood, then we would select wood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Mr. Angus.
Thank you. This has been very, very helpful, and I'm really pleased that we've had our witness here, being that this bill, we're hoping to get back today, and it being that it is Mr. Canning's bill, not Mr. Simard. I think Mr. Simard should have brought a bill like this, and we would have had a much more fulsome debate with all our witnesses, but that didn't happen. So I'm ready to vote.
Okay, well, I have nobody else on my list, and so I'm ready to call the vote on Block 1 amendment. So all in favor of Amendment 1 as put forward? All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay, that one is not carried. And I just wanted to welcome Mrs. Block and Mr. Lake, as well as our legislative clerk, to the table today. So the amendment is defeated. We'll now move to Clause 1 as originally put forward, so unamended. All in favor of Clause 1? All in favor? Okay, and opposed? That one is carried. Shall the title carry? All in favor? Okay, that one is carried. Actually, I'll call opposed. Okay, the title carries. And shall the bill carry? All in favor? And opposed? Okay, the bill carries. Shall the chair report the bill to the House? All in favor? It's good marching orders. Thank you so much. And opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. That concludes the part of business related to S222. We do have two other items to deal with briefly before we conclude today. The first is we need approval of the travel budget related to the Inflation Reduction Act. That was distributed yesterday. Does anybody have any questions on it? We did include travel for 7 members plus the support team. The 3 locations that were costed out were as discussed on Tuesday, with field trips to be taken in Houston, Denver, and Sacramento. Did anybody have any questions? Or are we ready to vote on the proposal that we can send then off to Liaison Committee? Okay, seeing no questions, shall we adopt the bill as presented? All in favor? I mean, not the bill, the budget. Let's call it a budget. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, so we'll, that's approved. We'll send the budget. And the very last item I have, welcome back to the table, our analysts. We have, well, actually, one of our analysts is still back there. We kept our legislative clerk. Ross has been with the committee since I started and before that. And Ross wanted a moment to address the committee. So with that, Ross, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. That's very kind of you. I've had a chance to speak with some of the members. Sadly for me, this is actually my last day on the committee, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank the members for the opportunity to work with the committee. It's been a pleasure. It's a privilege to work with each of you. J'ai beaucoup appris dans ce rôle, grâce à vous, les membres, mais aussi grâce aux...
I've learned a lot thanks to you, members, and just everybody who's participated in the committee. So I would also like to thank the clerk, the chair, and also my colleague, Diana. Thank you so much. The committee will be in very good hands, of course, going forward. Thank you so much.
Yes, Ross, thank you so much for your service to the library and to Parliament. For the members who are here, I do have a card if you'd like to stop by and sign it on the way out. And I have a small gift in my bag, but I'll wait until we're not being televised before I pull that out to present. So, congratulations on your new role outside of the House, and best of luck with your future endeavors. We'll miss you dearly here, and we also know that we're left in good hands. So, all the best to you. And with that, folks, we are adjourned. Have a safe travels home. Great week in the constituency, and we'll see everybody back here in a week. On the first day back, on the Tuesday, the 21st, we have the minister coming. Actually, yeah, we're not suspended yet. So we have the minister coming with officials to go over supplementary Sub-C. The issue I want to flag for everybody is that the way that the budget cycle works, the last supply day ends up being at a point where, because it works back from that, today is actually the last day where we can report back to the House on Sub-C. But it wasn't possible to get the minister here, so we can still have him come with officials. It means we simply can't amend any of the votes that are put to us, but we can still report back to the House. It'll just be without amendments. So the plan is to still have the minister and officials here on the Tuesday when we're back. Then on Friday, we'll be continuing with the report on recommendations on the Just Transition report, which we're not calling Just Transition, but the new title hasn't been adopted. So that'll be the first week back, and we'll see where we're at. The plan is then for the second week to move into the first panel of witnesses for the Inflation Reduction Act, and just to get that one started, and then I'll share details after that for the rest of the work plan. But now that's it. Safe travels. Have a good week at home. Kate, Mario, question.
Pardon, est-ce que...
Upon our return, will we not do report studies after we come back from the break?
Well, we're going to do the minister and Sub-C. Then we'll do the recommendations. Hopefully, we'll see if we conclude on the Friday for the Just Transition report. I would like to, I thought we'd be further along in the report, so we have invited a panel for Just Transition for the Tuesday. It's going to be, I think, a lot easier to have Just Transition, no, sorry, not Just Transition, IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, on Tuesdays, because if we have anybody outside of this time zone on the Fridays, it becomes very, very early. And so I'm going to keep Fridays for continuing to move along on our reports until we can get those concluded. So that's, and Kate, Mario.
Ce que disait notre...
What our motion said, if I recall, was that we were to finish before the reports. We were doing the study of the reports before studying Charlie's motion. We had a motion that said that.
The wording is, and we can get our clerk to give you the exact wording. I didn't take it as an absolute, and so, and I've heard from other members that there's some interest and urgency on the Inflation Reduction Act, and so I'm trying to do the dance of getting that one started, at least with one panel, And we are going to be holding at least some of it until after the budget, and then coming back to reports. But I wanted to get at least the one study, or the one panel of witnesses in this next 2-week session. But I get the wording from the clerk, because it's not an absolute, is how I interpret it. If the committee wants to direct otherwise. But let me get the clerk to give her the wording of the motion first, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Simard.
La section.
The article in the motion that you're referring to says that, notwithstanding other dispositions of the current motion, the chair will give priority to the examination of reports. Unless we do it in a subcommittee, I would prefer that we do what we had said, and that we give priority to the study on reports before starting a new study.
Charlie, over to you.
Yeah, I don't think we need to overthink this, Chair. If we're second guessing, we're not going to get much done. I think this is a very reasonable position. I think we're all very interested in the IRA. It's going to be strange to be going to the United States if we haven't actually started the studies, because we're going to be going in blind. So I think your attempt to balance this works, and I support it.
Okay, Shannon. Ms. Stubbs.
That's fine, Chair. Thank you. I would just say that Conservatives read and understood the motion in the same way that our Bloc colleague is articulating, and so we support his position that we should conclude the study reports.
Okay, well, how about we have the first week, which is, as I said, the minister and officials on SUPSI, which was at the request of the committee. The Friday is set for continuation of the report recommendations that we're on. Let me see where we're at that point, and we'll give a work plan the first week back. If we want to continue with reports, then we can continue with reports. I do think, anyway, there's some time to figure this out. So we have the first week work plan that fully respects what we have laid out for the committee. Mario.
I'm not trying to be annoying here, but before making a decision, I do think that that's something that we should do in a subcommittee before deciding what happens for everyone in the coming weeks, since we did have a motion. For me, it was quite clear that that's what we were going to do, that we would talk about the reports, and I prepared myself accordingly. So before taking this decision, I think that we should talk about it in a subcommittee at the very least.
Charlie. Over to you, Mr. Angus. You're next on my speakers list.
Thanks. Yes, I don't want to be combative, but I think if we wait for subcommittee, that just delays things, and it makes our work on getting these, our work of committee is going to be just slowed down. I think you've offered a reasonable thing. There's no conspiracy behind it. So how about we put your suggestion to a vote, and if the vote doesn't pass, then we can take it to subcommittee. But I would like to get this thing dealt with today so that our analysts have the instructions and the clerk has instructions to draw the witnesses that we need. So I would say we put it to a vote.
Okay, Mario.
Mais non.
No, there is no conspiracy here. We gave ourselves an agenda at the committee. Why would we vote on a proposition if all the participants had decided what our agenda would be to begin with? We can't just do this because Charlie wants to start his study as soon as possible. I prepare myself before coming here a long time beforehand. I know that we have reports that we have to study, and it impacts our report if we change things around, and we can't change the agenda to suit ourselves just and disrupt things. I don't think that that's appropriate. We had an agenda that was pre-established. If that were the case, then we could be changing the agenda every week. I think that as long as we don't discuss it and we're not doing it 5 minutes before the end, and unless we have time to talk about it in a subcommittee, I don't know why we would quickly vote on that without everyone having had the time to think about it.
Okay, I've heard the consideration or the concerns of the committee. I'm willing to to work with that. As I said, we have the schedule for the first week. Let me come back with a proposed schedule for the rest of it. We can deal with it when we're back. And with that, folks, we now need to get on with the day. I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and you'll get the notice once we're back in a week. Thank you, and have a good constituents week. Meeting adjourned.